I hope I did it right. Hello, 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 hello. Oh. How many of you can? Yeah. How's everybody doing? Let me look on my phone as I see who's jumping on, as I see comments. I'm so excited. Hey, Paul, how are you? We didn't get to connect while I was in Dallas all those months, but it's okay. Hey, Charles. See, I see how y'all do. Annalise, how are you? We're going to have an interesting conversation tonight. And it's just the beginning of the conversation. I'm going to need the men to help me. Hey, Becca. Jason's in the house. I want the men to really chime in tonight. I need your dialogue. I like to read certain things, and I like to listen to podcasts and conversations that people are having around some of the stuff that I think about, some of the work that I'm doing. And there was this thought, and then this information that I was reading last night that really, I got some people in an uproar on my personal page. Wasn't trying to get them in an uproar, but I definitely, my husband was like, oh, there you go, starting stuff again. Oh yes, those who were on last week when we talked about you got this. Husband is currently in Denver. Hey, Diani. Hey, husband is currently in in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I know we had some people on last week. I didn't even know we were touching Colorado Springs, other than a girlfriend of mine that I have known for quite some time. Hold on, I want to open this up. And it was pretty cool to have her say, yeah, I live in Colorado Springs. She was telling us about the weather. So he is there. He'll jump on when he can. He's at work. Good evening, Darren. And the life we live together, yet separate at times. And but that's just how sometimes things go, especially in this climate. As we are getting on here, and I want you to think about the conversation we're about to have. And we're going to have this over the next few weeks. I know the holidays and all of that's coming up, so I won't be on here every single Tuesday. I got to look at the schedule, because some Tuesdays I'm not going to be on here because it's like the week of Christmas and then the week of New Year's. And so things like that will interrupt this conversation. But I want you to think about hyper-masculinity. What does that mean to you? I want you to think about it and then give me a comment. Put something in the comments and tell me, what do you think hyper-masculinity is? I want to tell you why you're doing that. Hey, Dwayne, as you're doing that, though, I do want to tell you, I chose that phrase for many reasons. I was listening to something and they were talking about, many things, but he was really getting on the fact that, I'll just break it down. I'm gonna break it down. I'm trying to be evasive, but I don't need to be. I'm reading, as I'm working with my coaching group, we are talking about in Beyond Fatherless Coaching in our group sessions, we are talking about how God, our relationship with God, triggers our father wound. And as I was, preparing for that conversation over the last couple of weeks, there was something that I saw yesterday that has just, kind of had me stirring. And one of the things you have to recognize is a lot of individuals who are atheists and who struggle with relationships with God and with people tend to, they grow up fatherless. A lot of the philosophers, let me say it that way, a lot of the philosophers that we know, Nietzsche, Hume, Dawkins, Hitchens, Plato, a lot of these individuals had a father wound, whether it was father was absent, father was in the military but present, father was distant, substitute father became a monk, a priest who then violated them. It's all of these other things. And as I'm looking at this, preparing, the conversation of hypermasculinity came up, and I was like, oh, that needs to be the topic for our Tuesday, our Healing Tuesday. And so I'm excited to kind of look at this. I'm a thinker. I don't know if you guys know that, but I'm a thinker. So I'm willing to put my thoughts out there and see how they move. And that's kind of where I want to go tonight. I want to put some of the thoughts that I have accumulated from others and then some of my thoughts, but I want your thoughts on this as well. We have heard the phrase toxic masculinity put out there over the last couple of years when the Me Too movement started to really get intense. And this is not toxic masculinity, okay? I know some things that I've read try to associate the two, but there's really a difference between the two. So let me see what you guys put in the chat. Let me see. Oh, he said he's waiting for me. Okay. So guys that just look at themselves as superior. Okay. Guys aren't meant to be feminine. Okay. A mom trying to teach a son how to pee standing up as if they have experience. That's okay. Paul said, I have no idea. Interesting. Not surprising. Sounds like there may be some warring against fathers. Oh, okay. I might have. No, I think that's a part. The crazy part, Dwayne, you may think that that's not really part of the definition of what is hypermasculinity. But as I talk about some things, I'll break down a little bit tonight on how moms in that way help cultivate hypermasculinity in their sons. So the conversation that we want to, everything that I do is the framework. Hey, Vark. Hey, babe. The framework that I want to always let you know, we're going to always talk about fatherless sons, fatherless daughters. It's all around fatherlessness when we're having the conversation. It's called hypermasculinity, a false substitute father. Because how many of you know that when you are fatherless, you are always going to look for a mentor, a substitute of some sort to help get you what it is that you need. So let me read to you the definition that I found and then kind of how I put it all together. Hypermasculinity is rigid gender expectations and the way boys are taught to be men, right? So it's really about how you help a boy become a man. The psychological term hypermasculinity focuses on the exaggeration of male behavior. It emphasizes physical strength, aggression, and sexuality. So how I kind of put this all, put it all together and gave my thoughts, I see hypermasculinity as an exaggeration of the qualities associated with becoming and being a man. Okay? I see hypermasculinity as an exaggeration of qualities associated with becoming and being a man. Right? So let me just be clear on what I'm saying. Hopefully it's clear, but I just want to be clear on what I'm saying. There's a way that a man is supposed to be. There's a way, right? There's a foundation, there's basics. But when you don't have a father in the home, and then you have to have a substitute, there's this exaggeration of what manhood, manliness, becoming a man and being a man looks like. Hey, Nick, how are you? And that's where this all comes together. And why I phrased it the way that I did, because becoming a man is just as important as how you sit in your manhood to me. And I'm going to say this. I know it's odd for you to listen to a woman talking about hypermasculinity, a substitute, a false substitute for father. But I also have to put in here because we've talked about how we as women can carry some super masculine traits, which makes us emasculating. And I believe that women in this season have also become hypermasculine. We tend to do it in our relationships. We do it when we're raising our children. We do it in a way that I'm the mother and the father, right? And then boys and girls get the wrong idea about what it means to be masculine. So I want to be clear that this is not just about men. This is not to bash men. This is to help us look at the context of what we're dealing with when we look outside our window, when we look on social media and we see certain things, right? Because it said hypermasculinity emphasizes physical strength, aggression, and sexuality. How many of us know some fatherless brothers out here and sisters out here who are having multiple children with multiple women? Because they're hypersexual. See, fatherless individuals are hypersexualized. Why that is, that has a lot to do with the development and feeling loved and wanted, and even some of the stuff we talked about last week when I was saying, you've got this. Answering the question, do I have what it takes to be a man? And girls asking the question, am I valuable? Am I valued? Am I lovely? And so in order to figure out if I'm lovely, I become hypersexual. In order to figure out if I have what it takes, I become hypersexual, and I'm putting it down and laying it down for anything and everything to kind of, in many ways, to cover up my shame and my hurt and my pain and a lot of different things, my trauma. And Becca said, I know those types. We all know those types, because if we grew up fatherless or grew up around trauma, trust me, the other people around us probably had the same thing, and trauma wasn't far behind in their lives either. Let me see. I want to see. I don't know how to say your name. Is it Jonks? He said, truth. And if a child finds the incorrect influence, the child learns hypermasculinity, everything that won't benefit a young man later in life, especially in social relationships. Yeah, this stuff, like even like a post I made on Dr. Torri J today, talking about overachieving. Well, overdoing anything is always a bad thing, right? Why can't you just achieve? I'm going to say it this way. Why can't you just be masculine? Because we've learned from the wrong places, the wrong influences, the wrong things. So let's go a little bit deeper into this. I want you guys to engage me on, I see you saying it's spot on. Well, thank you, Joshua. He's like, this is spot on. I don't want to come on here. I am not a know-it-all. I don't want to be a know-it-all, but I'm going to read and I'm going to learn different things in order to present a great conversation for you and with you. And I want you to engage me. This is about engagement. And let me back up, because I didn't even come on here and introduce myself to some. You know, I'm known by some, clearly not enough based on some conversations I've had in the last few weeks. I'm Dr. Torri J. And so as we talk about this stuff, I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. And as I'm going to talk about these things for Healing Tuesday, this conversation is to be engaging. I want you to share it with anyone you think may be interested. I want you to chime in. This conversation, as I said earlier, I want it to be a conversation of ideas and thoughts. And if you think something, this is where I want to go with us now. If you think something, put it in the comment box, right? Because I believe that we learned some wrong things in school too. It's like they always had that sign in school that says no question is a bad question, but as soon as you asked it, it was a problem. Yeah, I was the kid who wasn't going to ask that question, but I always had many thoughts. And I want you to understand that your thoughts and what you think about life and life's journey and that you've been in the journey you've been on is very important to me. And it's very important to the people, you guys are over here. It's very important to the people who are chiming in and listening in as well. So as I'm talking, you have a thought, you have something that, you know, it may be an original thought. Maybe you haven't heard it before. I want you to put it in the comment when it comes to hypermasculinity. I want to stay on the topic, but I want you to put it in the conversation, because we have to recognize that thoughts are philosophy. Even government was created out of a thought. It was created out of an idea. And a lot of times in the groups that I work with, we're always trying to, you know, they're trying to figure out how to, you know, abolish the family court and do this and that and a lot of that's out of trauma. But I don't want your thought to be out of trauma. I want your thought to be out of like a pureness in your heart where you're like, you know what? I am hyper masculine or whatever that thought may be. I'm just kind of giving you a preface right now. Just no cussing, no disrespecting anybody in the comments. But let's have a real conversation where you are open to put your thoughts in the comments without any judgment, without any issues here, right? So thank you, Dwayne. Yes, iron sharpens iron, Dwayne. He said, I value your knowledge and wisdom. Thank you, Dwayne. I do this because this is what I have to do for you guys. So let's go back into how I see hypermasculinity. And I want to know how you see it. Now that you've heard the definitions from a psychological perspective, and then from my perspective, and I'm going to say it again, I see hypermasculinity as an exaggeration of qualities associated with becoming and being a man. The question that I believe a lot of us have growing up, especially men, how can I be a man when my father never taught me? Raise your hand in the comment if you've had that thought. How can I be a man when my father never taught me? Not any man, my father. How can I be the woman that I need to be when my father never taught me? Raise your hand. Because fathers teach young women how to be women too. I know we think that's not a thing, but it is. I want to see how many of you have had that thought. How many of you have had that thought that how can I be a man when my father never taught me? How can I be the woman I'm called to be if my father isn't present and he never taught me? Yeah, Becca, that's honest. Like we've all had that moment if we grew up fatherless. If we grew up fatherless, and y'all know my definitions of fatherless, we're not going to even change it up here. Paul says, when a man grows up without a true model of what a man is, and this is the second generation of to experience this, yes, because the generation is 40 years, y'all. Does this create hypermasculinity because we are trying to figure it out? Come on, Paul. That's a good thought, bruh. Thank you. Does this create hypermasculinity because we're trying to figure it out? See, this is where we're going tonight, because hypermasculinity is a false substitute for fathering. It's a false substitute for this father that you're looking for. Because you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to figure out, well, if my father isn't here to teach me, who's going to teach me? I'll get into that in a moment. Let's get into what the role of a father is and how does he teach his son to be a man. I'm going to tell you, I 100% believe that the role of the father tends to be overlooked and undervalued by aspects of our society. Not everybody believes in this thing. You know how many people believe that I'm supposed to do this for a living? And I find it very intriguing that so many men who kind of do fatherhood stuff get a lot more credit than I ever get, because I'm a woman in this space. People have a problem with that. I don't care. Ask my husband. I don't care. But you guys are undervalued. You're overlooked. But many studies literally prove that a dad's role is vitally important to the heartbeat of his children. I remember there was a young lady in the peer group that I launched here right before COVID in Fort Lauderdale. She illustrated how when her father left her life, her heartbeat actually flatlined. And you guys might have seen that video if you've been following us for a longer period of time. She literally illustrated it out in her journal. And I know this is very true for many fatherless sons and daughters. Our fathers they're vitally important to our heartbeat, how our hearts move, right? And we can't acknowledge that sometimes, many times, in our fatherless homes, in our single mom homes, in our single parent homes, because then what does that say about my mother's value and worth? What does that say about her? See, my mother just chimed in and said good night. On cue. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't cute. But this heartbeat that our fathers are vitally important to, we ignore it. We don't think about it. We move on in life. And then that's hindering us. So what do we do when our fathers aren't present? How do we navigate this intense, unstable, unfamiliar water, that we need to grow up, that we're growing up in this, household without a father? Many are going to find this substitute surrogate to fill it. They're going to find a man to teach them how to be a man. And unfortunately, when we're looking at a substitute father, it happens to be a male who will replace an absent and or an emotional absent father. And this person becomes an object of an attachment. How many of you know that, as we've talked about for many years on here, we've discussed it, we've talked about it, these attachment disorders that we have. We will attach to a baby, we'll attach to a relationship. I can even see in my overachieving aspects and ways, my overachieving ways, I attach to a career and success. And those attachments aren't normal. They're dysfunctional, and they don't get us where we think they're going to get us. Let me go back to some of your comments here. Dwayne says, I've had this thought about my son growing up without me, and it frightens me. I understand. I don't know why Jason laughed. I can't go back. I don't even know. There were many fatherly type men who stepped up in my life while I was growing up to fulfill my fatherlessness. I am forever grateful. That's what we need. That's what we need. I see Becca said, ouch, that's deep. Let me see. Joshua says, it's sometimes seen that even great father traits are categorized as toxic masculinity traits in today's society. You know, when you're talking about hyper-masculinity, of course, toxic masculinity is going to come up. They're not the same. They're not. They're similar, but they're not the same. But I do recognize that when you are in a world that struggles to understand manhood and fatherhood, because we are the generation, like Paul said, who grew up mostly without our fathers. And then a lot of us have repeated the cycle. And so now we're on the second go round of this generation, that when people see masculinity, many of them think it's toxic. They question, is this toxic? What is this about? Oh, he's aggressive. And yes, society is trying to, and feminize men in a way that makes it comfortable for us who grew up without men in our household, without fathers in our household, without understanding what that looks like. See you later, Jason. I look forward to your comments. But we struggle with what that looks like. We struggle with how that is. And so I had to make a post this week. There's a gospel singer named Smokey Norfolk. And his son, on Thanksgiving Day, literally climbed into his arms. His son is 16 years old. And his son climbed into his arms, and they just laid on the couch or the chaise or something together and just laid together. And he posted it on social media. And a lot of people called it weird. They thought it was sinister. They questioned, what kind of craziness is this? And I was just thinking to myself, and I made a post about it. This all is super challenging for me, because we demonize good fathers because we had such dysfunctional ones. We have normalized absent fatherhood so much that we don't even know what it looks like in real time. To have a 16-year-old boy come lay in his father's arms is not dysfunctional, and it's not disgusting, and it's not weird. It is a way that a father can teach his son how to be a man. Just laying there, just being present. But our society, they try to make everything about masculinity toxic. And you have to just know who you are. You have to be comfortable in who you are. So Joshua, that's a great point. Paul says, I wonder if we truly don't know what a father should be, because the father role is underplayed, especially when a man grows up without a father involved. Yeah, you can't know what it is. How do you know what it is? You know how you know what it is? You watch it on TV. Many Black men growing up in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, early 2000s, they saw Bill Cosby. And that was not only manhood, that was fatherhood too. And it was the first time many of them saw it. A lot of the sitcoms we grew up with had men who were raising children, or men who were being cool. Remember, I was very young when this was on. I ain't gonna date myself this bad. I didn't watch it a lot, but I did watch it. Happy Days. And Fonz was the cool dude, right? But he was super. He was a lot to take. He was a lot to take. And so, look, y'all like, who is Fonz? Those who are in the 40 club and the 50 club, y'all in the 50 club, y'all really know who he is. But the 40 club, we had a glimpse of who he is. But there were other individuals who were on TV who were, I may say, toxic masculinity. They may have shown some traits of being toxic in their masculinity, but that was where people had an opportunity to learn. We're the generation of the latchkey kids, single parent household. Yeah, this was our world because TV was what taught us what to do and how to be, and manhood was one of those things. Amanda, I see you. She said, I do as well, my career. From the perspective coming from a divorced home and not having an involved father, do we attach on way too hard to our children? And if so, is that unhealthy? Yes. Yes. Some of y'all, I see y'all post, I'd be like, y'all got to get a different life. Y'all got to get a little more harmony in your life. I don't call it balance anymore. Oh, I'm struggling with this little line. Y'all have to call somebody and get some Botox. That means I've been stressing. See that? And I have been. But yeah, we definitely have put ourselves in a position where when you are an alienated father, or you've been divorced and you only have a certain amount of time with your children, or you're a father who has a child out of wedlock, you're an unmarried father. Yes, you attach way too hard, and it's unhealthy because your attachment, how you guys attach can come off not only dysfunctional, it comes off, how do I put this? It's an inordinate affection. Like how some of your children attached to you can even look like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship if done wrong. And I've seen that a lot where especially the little girls, they attach to their fathers in a way where they think that that's their man and that's not who you are. But because you come and you show up and you're Superman and you do this and you do that, that's what they know. And that's what they get from you. So you've got to figure out how to manage that in the right way when you are on limited parenting time, when you are coming from divorce and dysfunction and alienation. You got to be careful because your heart's desire and your got to be a part of it. You can get yourself in a whole lot of trouble. So true. Trying to make men feel wrong about being men and being neutral. I can tell you, I've had my own struggles with this in my own marriage. Like, what does manhood look like? And my husband isn't perfect at it. He didn't have his father either. We've had that conversation. Hey, Corey, we've had that conversation on here. So he has his moments too, where he's trying to figure out what it all looks like. But I can tell you, as a woman who grew up in a fatherless home, and yes, I had lots of surrogates and substitutes and all of those things around me. I'm gonna tell you, one of the substitutes I had was a mother who was definitely, and her and I she just said goodnight, but her and I also had a conversation about this the other day. And this is something that's in my family that I started asking questions over the last month, like, why y'all so hard on men? Like, men trying to love y'all, but y'all be like, oh, he ain't nothing, he ain't, and we'll cut it. Look. So I got to see women just really be mean and harsh and domineering and controlling to men. In the spirit world, we call that a Jezebel spirit. I know y'all think Jezebel is a loose woman. And I know y'all think Jezebel slept around, but Jezebel dominated her husband, Ahab, and he was a puppet. And he got himself in a whole lot of trouble because he was not in the position that he was supposed to be in. But I'm going to tell you right now that when we make men feel wrong about being men, when we think that we know what manhood looks like, keeping it real. I think I try sometimes to feminize my husband a little more than I should. Yes, there are moments when, yeah, he didn't do that right. But there are also things, because we live in this metrosexual world, I think I have moments where I do that. And it's just a thought and I'm going to say it. And that's not my intention. But hearing Jason, like what Jason said here, trying to make men feel wrong about being men, he's being the man that he knows he's supposed to be, right? Based on his upbringing. And a lot of you have had that in your lives. And I'm not going to put on here that he is doing it right either. We keep it real here, and he's on here. We keep it real in this space. And so I'm not going to say that he's doing it right all the time, but I'm also not going to say that I'm doing it right all the time either. We are working through, sorry, I'm getting a whole bunch of text messages from people. We are working through our fatherlessness. We go to counseling, we go to coaching. I got 2 folks I call and I ask them questions, and both of them have been married 30 plus years. You gotta have people around you who know what it's supposed to look like. Let me see. Jason, Jason, I thought you was getting off of here. You still on here? He said, I cuddle my sons as often as they need it. There's not only nothing wrong with that. There's everything right with it. You want to give your sons pure affection, their craving, so they don't look for it elsewhere. And that's what happens when we're becoming men. Gentlemen, you guys are looking for it because you know you're supposed to have it. You're like, well, I'm going to be a man. So who's going to teach me how to do this? Positive examples of substitute fathers are coaches, teachers, and mentors. But let me give you some negatives. One negative is gangs. Like, gangs literally become a surrogate father, and they institute violence as a way of survival, protection, and even providing for your family. People have had to go there. All right, Dwayne, I'm sorry. I missed saying goodnight to you. People have had to go there in order to provide for their family. Jason, I thought you was getting off of here. You still commenting. I got you, Jason. He said he wanted to comment on the Smoky Norfolk one. I had my own conversations with my mom, asking if she pushed my father away. Ooh, how'd that go, Amanda? How did that go? And Amanda, you're the one in Colorado Springs. My husband is there. Hey, Kantar, how are you? That's my nephew. But yeah, it's this really weird place where gangs are providing survival, protection, and provision for a family. So when we want to, he said, I'm out for real now. Yeah, right. So when we want to demonize individuals for joining gangs, and they're just trying to survive in their neighborhood, and then it gives them protection also in their neighborhoods, and then it helps them provide for their mothers and other siblings at home. You can't, I heard someone say in a documentary recently, there are no rules as to how you provide for your family. I was like, ooh, and it was coming from an ex-gang member, and that's how they dealt with life. And he was fighting to not have that same gang mentality. He had gotten his license to be a barber. And in the midst of him becoming a barber, money was funny. And he did something. He was getting himself into a situation where they wanted him to do some time because he got in trouble. And one of the gentlemen said, there's no judgment here because, we grew up learning in these gangs, there's no rules to how you provide for your family. And we like to set rules. We like to tell people, oh, you can't steal, you can't cheat, you can't do this and that. But if I'm hungry and I can't eat, then I've got to do what I've got to do. And that's a form of, gangs to me is not hyper-masculinity. That's toxic masculinity because you're instituting violence as a way to get that done. See, toxic masculinity looks like abuse, emotional, verbal abuse, domestic violence. That's what that looks like. But when you're dealing with hyper-masculinity traits, it's strength, it's courage, it's independence, it's leadership, it's assertiveness, but it's over the top. It's hyper. And I need you guys to recognize that. I need you guys to recognize that some of you, even in your attachment styles with your children, you're overdoing it, like the question that was asked earlier. If we come out of situations that that are challenging, and we're still not married to their mothers, and we're still not this and that, and we're divorced, and am I doing it wrong? More than likely you are. Oh, Amanda says, she says, I hope it's going well for him. Convo with my mom was interesting. I'm sure it was. Every conversation we have with our parents always reveals another layer of their humanity. Vark, you're commenting under the fatherless generation. See, he got access, y'all. Amanda, he said he cold. See, I said it in my ghetto vernacular. He cold. It is colder in Colorado Springs today, and it's going to get colder tomorrow, y'all. It's going to snow. This is a Southern man. He's in Colorado. Hilarious. I want to know, what does masculinity, not hyper-masculinity, what does masculinity, my question that I have in my head is, what does masculinity look like to you? But I want to ask you, I'm going to change it. How was masculinity modeled to you? Male and female, I want to know this. How was masculinity modeled to you? Meaning the men that you saw in your family, in your community, on TV, the coaches, the gangs, whatever it was. I need to type this out. How was masculinity modeled to you? Because I think that's the most important question. How was it modeled? Where did you get your idea? What shaped you into believing what masculinity looked like, what manhood looked like? I see you, Amanda. She said snow by Saturday. It said snow on Thursday on my thing. Come on, somebody. How was masculinity modeled to you? And maybe you don't have an answer because it really wasn't. And if that is your answer, put that in the comment section. Okay, Paul's got one. Work, tell jokes, drink beer, and one up the next guy. Okay. Yeah. But see, I get what kind of masculinity that is. I get it. Because see, work is providing. That's something every man wants to do for his family. Tell jokes. Got to keep some humor in the house. Drink beer, because you ain't a man if you ain't drinking that nasty beer. And then one up the next guy. That's hilarious. You want to be the superior one in the room. Vark, you said church. Okay. Church masculinity was modeled to you at church. Now, some folks would disagree with you on that one, because sometimes at church is a little more effeminized than it should be. So Varg said church, you guys. And then Becca says it was modeled as unnecessary, evil, and mean. My mom hated men. See? I'm just leave that up there for a moment. Can you see how individuals can become masculinized? Can you see, like in that alone? We are talking about in the Black community, 75% are raised in fatherless households. And let's be clear, that's saying that what this modeling that Becca's talking about is the same modeling many got. Many. Vark, I see you over here. You are misbehaving as usual. It was modeled as unnecessary, evil, and mean. My mom hated men. See? Fact, I was an auto technician for a long time. Wow. Okay. Provider, strong, and smart. Okay. See, Tina had a balanced look. I can't with this one. I don't remember any man at church that had hoes. Yeah. Because that's not manhood, sir. Help my husband, y'all. What I believe it is now being a warrior, leader, servant, companion. Okay, yeah. She said, I came from an emotionally absent father. Was he emotionally absent because he was busy providing, Tina? And that was the part that he stuck to? Because you said provider, strong, and smart. So I want to know if that was the thing he clung to. Because as I said earlier, I tend to cling to my career too. I have strong masculine traits when it comes to my career and my business and how I function in it. It doesn't feel good because it wears me the heck out. No lady wants to be that. So how was masculinity modeled to you? I think some of the things I saw on TV is men don't cry. Men don't show emotions. Men are strong. They're providers. Men are Prince Charming and they save the woman in distress. It's like, oh, and he comes and saves her, right? So those were some of the things that I have on the top of my head as to how I saw my masculinity modeled in front of me. Let me see what you guys are saying over here. Okay. That was good. I like the participation on that one. I want to go to something I have on my screen. Psychologist Thomas Sheff, I was reading something that he wrote earlier. He said hyper-feminine mothers and wives encourage their males to be hyper-masculine to protect them, thereby helping produce hyper-masculine violence or leading into toxic masculinity. How many of you feel like your single-parent household and the things that your mother needed encouraged you to access your hyper-masculinity? I was going to say hyper-masculine behavior. I never thought that, but maybe. It seemed like he just didn't connect emotionally. Definitely no crying, critical, judgmental. Yeah, I'm just asking, well, it was the first thing you listed, right, in what you felt was modeled. And when someone tells me that their father was present but emotionally absent, what did he cling to his career? Is that the place that he felt most successful, most needed, most wanted, where he could be of value? I know we want to demonize our fathers when they're not where they need to be, but they're humans. And they're humans. And so they have the same challenges we have in our adult lives. We look at it, we look at them still from a childhood lens when we need to look at them from the mature adult male or female lens. Becca says, ooh, I hate that society shuns men for being human. Yeah, Becca, it's time that we let men be human. She says, I do as well. Strong masculinity here. My husband can't handle this sometimes. I still fix my own flat tires and change my own oil. Oh, dang, Amanda. Amanda, you need to ease up. You need to ease up off of that. And Kantara, I know you laughing at your uncle because he crazy. I see your laughing emoji because he crazy. You need to help him. And Tina says, Amanda Davis, same here. I want to do it all myself, but will ask for help. But then I get upset if my husband asks like I'm a bother. God, I think I get what you're saying. You don't want you. Let me say it this way. But then she gets upset if her husband asks like I'm a bother. Somebody help me understand that. You want to do it all yourself, but will ask for help. But then you get upset if your husband asks like you're a bother. Why do you feel like you're a bother? The career most defined us gives us something to hide behind. Now that's what it is, Paul. We hide. Oh, okay. I was like, ask. Okay, acts like a bother. I was like, huh? Acts like a bother. I get it. Okay, thank you. Look, Becca was like, acts like a bother. Yeah, we were trying to figure that out. I have that challenge. I just like, if there's a great song by Jill Scott. Let me pull it up. I'm pull it up. I want to read some of these lyrics to you. And I think it goes into, you know, we're not getting married in our 20s anymore. A lot of women are getting married in their 30s after they've established a career, 40s, 50s, right? We got some stuff taken care of. This song by Jill Scott it's called The Fact Is. And the fact is, and don't even do it, Var, because I know you. I'm not singing it. She says, I can pay my own light bill, baby. I can pump my own gas in my own car. I can buy my own shoe collection, and I've been blessed thus far. She said, I can kill the spider above my bed. And although it's hard because I'm scared, I can even stain in polyurethane, but some things just don't change. I need you. See, what women are talking about, like Tina and Amanda and myself are talking about, is we've learned to do these things out of necessity. We've learned to do these things because there wasn't a man around. And then also our mothers did it. And so when our mothers weren't around, we then started to tap in masculine traits and masculine aspects. And some people are like, well, that's just what you do. You know, women do what they got to do. And I understand that part too. But ladies, I do believe in gender roles. I do. I want a little saving. I want you to read my mind a little bit about the romance. Look, Varg put the video. Thank you, Varg. He put the video in there of the song. It's a beautiful song, but it's one of those moments where you recognize that as a woman, we have to be interdependent versus what Amanda's saying, very independent. Because our independence will then morph into, especially onto our sons, making them hyper masculine in order to be the man that protects you, in order to be the man who provides for you, right? Those boys aren't joining gangs in Chicago and Detroit and New York or wherever else just to be in a gang to provide for themselves. That is typically to provide for their family, meaning their mother, their siblings, and everything else in between. And this hyper-masculine trait or traits that people have, you know, it's really hurtful, because if our father is hyper-masculine, that's the kind of man he'll teach us to become. And we will think being that kind of man is exactly what we're supposed to be. And then we'll run across someone who's like, that's not it. That doesn't work for me. And then you're questioning everything. I am not the person who believes that every father is a perfect father. I'm not. I said it earlier. I believe fathers are human. But I also believe that there's some fathers who are dangerous to the development of their children because they have their own set of trauma and dysfunction and challenges. But what I want us to be clear, especially during this series, is hypermasculinity is a false substitute to the father that you needed. Ladies, we step into this place of masculinity and we become the man that we need or needed. We become the father that we need and needed. Men, you step into hypermasculinity, puff up your chest, you show all of your strength. The psychological definition, and I am no psychiatrist, no therapist, but I know how to read. Okay. But it literally focuses on strength, right? It focuses on aggression and it focuses on sexuality. And are you hyper masculine in those ways? And if you are, it may be causing you some challenges. If that's solely how you are thrusting around your masculinity. Because hyper drive, y'all like that, right? Some people like to go fast. I can't say I always do. Mr. Barton driving down to Miami on 95, going 95, my butt cheeks are tight, okay? I'm braking, I'm gripping. I don't like anything hyper. But out of dysfunction, we tend to do it unconsciously. Paul, you said, does he act like that? Or is it how you receive that message? I work a lot on changing how I receive a message from someone so I can change what it means to me. Good thought. For me, likely how I receive. Yeah, I can usually check on that by communicating how I feel and letting my husband speak for himself. Clarifying questions is the key to great communication. You were independent or you didn't survive. Now asking for help feels like weakness or failure. Becca, you getting some snaps, girlfriend, because that's real. You were independent because it was how you survived. We're not getting married at 12, 14, 20. No. What are we supposed to do? Be helpless until y'all show up? That's not a factor. I watched a video the other night where this goes into hyper-masculinity. I wish I could find it and put it on here. I saw a woman, it was a TikTok video, and she was talking about, let me see. Look, see, on the fly, on the spot. I know who posted it, but she posted it in her stories. Maybe she put it on her page. It was a lady who works in a hospital, and she was talking about the men that she sees in this hospital. And she was like, men, y'all bought into a lie, because she's watching 40, she works in the stroke ward, and she's looking at 40 and 50-year-old men who are in the stroke ward. Part of their body isn't working, the left side or the right side, right? And she then says, they have no family. They have no wives. They have parents, but their parents are older. And these girlfriends ain't coming up to help because now they're not, it's not providing them what they need. They don't have children. And if they do, their children aren't coming up to help. And she's like, you guys bought into a lie. And they told her, well, I've been a player. I've been playing. It's like, you 40 and 50 playing? Like, and now you had a stroke, and now there's no one to help you. Because all these women you done played, where they at? They're missing. You have used sexuality as a way to display, to manifest your hyper-masculinity. And it doesn't benefit you because it was a false teacher. It was a false substitute for the father that you needed. And a lot of us needed a good father, and we didn't have it. Not in the time frame, in the generations that we grew up, we didn't have them. And so now what do we do? Now that we're dealing with this hyper-masculinity from men and women, how do we navigate these relationships? How do we deal? Hey, Brian. How do we deal with our relationships? We don't deal with them very well. One of the things I learned in reading this article by Thomas Sheff, he talked about a couple of things that I want to bring up. He talked about a shame loop and how a shame loop actually is one of the basic causes of depression or violence. Y'all notice that domestic violence is on a rise, especially during COVID and locked in, and so is depression. Somehow they seem to be going hand in hand. And shame becomes the conversation that this person is having about it as to why it's happening. He even said a shame and anger loop can lead to aggression. So what is that? Like, why aren't we admitting that we have shame associated with our journeys? Why are we not admitting the trauma that we are experiencing from daddy not being where he was supposed to be when we needed him to be in that position? I think a lot for some of the people that I've worked with, and a lot of times I hear the conversation over and over again is that, well, I don't want my mother to feel bad. I don't want my mother to feel any kind of way. But I tell you, breakthrough comes in conversation. It comes from conversation. My mother and I had a tremendous breakthrough, Becca. My mother and I have been talking now consistently since my aunt's passing. But I didn't let her just come back in. I took her through the ringer, okay? She had to answer certain questions about certain situations, and I didn't let off until she answered those questions. And once I got the answer to the question that was satisfactory, and some of you who watched the conversation about sexual abuse on here, it was the one with Matt Volker, where I realized that I needed my mother to speak to the 12-year-old me. And when I realized that I needed her to speak to the 12-year-old me, I was over it. Like as soon as I realized that's what it was and I processed it, I was over that issue. Now we dealt with like 2 or 3 other issues, but I was over that issue. And yesterday I, had in my spirit that I needed to talk to my mother truly about something that happened to me through my journey of building the foundation that she didn't know about. And of course, she was like, no, I don't want to know about it. We had this argument on whether or not she was going to tell, whether or not she was going to allow me to tell her. I was like, shut up. Like I had that moment. And for me, it was shameful. I had grieved it. And I definitely knew that I had been in a place of depression at points concerning the situation. I have a book that I have been trying to write for quite some time. And the editor sent the notes back maybe about 8 months ago that I needed to develop certain parts of 3 stories. And because they were super emotional, I've just kind of put it off to the side. And the book will be done as soon as I put this information in it. But I've struggled in that. But I needed to tell my mother. And in telling her, we had a super bonding moment. Like it was crazy that we were able to bond. And she began to apologize for not being where she needed to be in helping me build the foundation. See, I've not gotten any grants. I've not gotten any help from my family. I've not gotten anything from anybody. This has been a blessing from God to be able to do this work and still maintain and be able to pay my bills and do this full time. But I know people think that they're handing out grants left and right for people reuniting children with their fathers. They're not. They're handing out grants for other things, but I'm not going to get sidetracked and be somebody's puppet doing other things. That's not going to work for me. So now that, I'm a foundation and my goal is to have enough money in the pot where I can be the foundation that hands out money for those things. I want to be the grant distributor and evaluators on our team in order to hand out money for that, because y'all can't get no money for grants for people to abolish the family courts or to go to the Capitol and fight against child support being, horrible, or you're not getting your parenting time, because that's not where it is. The money is in other places. And the problem is that fathers aren't valued. And the other problem is when we find ourselves in these shame cycles and these shame loops, depression and violence and aggression and all this stuff sets in, and then hyper-masculinity then turns into toxic masculinity. I even read someplace where this one guy said, I put this on here. I did type this out on here. He said, toxic masculinity is a lack of masculinity. It's masculinity that doesn't get enough oxygen and goes moldy. That's what one guy called toxic masculinity. He didn't even feel like it was the same thing, not even close. Let me jump here really quickly. He said, it also illustrates how society disposes of men when they can no longer provide. That's true. Because women seem to be making more money in many, or increasing their salaries in many, in many career paths in this day and age. That is true even if a man can still provide, just not the way others want. Yeah, plain and simple. Men are disposable. Well, you're talking about male disposability, and that's very true. Becca said, I had a surrogate dad and things were good for a while. Then he basically abandoned me as a young adult. I think that launched me into a deeper state of masculinity. Men were a disappointment and caused pain. Come on, Becca. Like that's a whole conversation for next week in itself. Being disappointed by men. And so then once again, you become the man. Amanda said, my son just watched a TED Talk about how suicides due to isolation are higher than COVID deaths. One of the conferences that I did, and it was a social distance conference, and I'm saying that wasn't about social distancing, but they did it in a way that allowed us to social distance. That's the better way to say it. And it was done because the pastor of the church was having a really difficult time with all the suicide rates. Suicides had gone up 35%. And then they were saying the numbers were getting crazier and crazier. And they weren't sure of the impact those suicides are going to have after COVID passed. So we're living in a very strange time, but this is one of the things that I was talking to a client about. You know, when everything opened back up, we were hoping that life would go back to normal, right? In many ways. And then we looked up and we realized that it wasn't. I've had to shift. Like, I'm not reuniting fathers in this season. I can't. Courts are weird and wacky and slow, and and how do you get an attorney to do low bono or pro bono work when they're fighting for their family and their kids are just in the other room too, trying to, do schoolwork? And it's been crazy. It's been crazy. So this is our new normal. But prayerfully, the suicides aren't. You got to put out the shame so you can grow. Okay, so we're going back to the shame conversation there with Paul. See, Amanda's good for you. Yeah, with my mother. I believe it. It's why isolation is used as a punishment. Ooh. Brian said, yep, I didn't get my court order called yesterday. I posted on Facebook about it. Them, I guess either the mother saw it or someone snitched on me and the kids called today. Yeah, I'm going to tell you guys, as we're going to talk about this, we're going to go deeper and deeper. But I don't want you men to think that this is a male bashing session. I think some people, didn't jump on, or they were kind of like, what is this going to be about? This is not a male bashing session. This is a hyper-masculinity bashing session, because we don't want that in any aspects of our lives. And we don't want that to be the substitute for the father that we needed. We don't want to become hyper masculine because our father wasn't present in any way, shape, or form. This is all going to work out the way that it's supposed to as we have this conversation. I'm not going to stay on here much longer here, but I want you guys to chime in on a last couple of things here. When you look at manhood and you look at masculinity, and even in how we talked about it tonight, did you learn something different, or did it solidify your thoughts around manhood and masculinity? That's what I want to know about the conversation tonight, because I'm going to take it someplace else. This was just laying the foundation tonight. This was just laying the groundwork. Did you learn something new, or did it solidify what you already knew? And did you learn something new about yourself in the, I guess, the aspect of your hypermasculinity? Amanda said both. Okay, I can work with that, Amanda. Did you guys learn something new, or did it just solidify what you already knew? Y'all ain't talking to me tonight? Solidified what I already knew. I just need to know how to change it. We're going to get there, Becca. We're going to get there. I promise you. We're going to get there. Men, what did this like? I got the ladies chiming in, and Elise said also both. Okay, I got the women chiming in. Men, because I asked y'all to be super, get your communication on tonight. Men, what did you learn tonight? Something new, or it just confirmed what you already knew? Because I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I need that confirmation to make me feel like I can go, to the next place. So depends on the topic, but sometimes I need that. John says, I learned something, but society, I'm sorry. I clicked on the wrong one because she came in at the same time. I learned something, but society will continue to measure and judge men in a negative light. We need that to change. Well, it changes in a conversation, and conversations eventually get out, and depending on platforms, it becomes more of a conversation. We can't have these conversations from a toxic place, from a traumatizing place. We need to have it from the voice of a child many times so that people can hear us. Tina said, I never connected that I'm hyper masculine because my dad was always working. He is such a hard worker, always busy. And that's me. I like the fact that you connected the dots to that. That's what I want to do anytime I'm on here. I'm curious about careers for men in our feminist state. Ooh. Yeah, where do men work now? Yeah, women doing it all, taking over places. That's a good question. So next week I'm gonna look at some of the comments you guys have made. I'm gonna go deeper. Okay, so next week be ready to take off a little bit deeper so that we can continue this conversation and get the help. I'm gonna give you some steps and some stages and some stuff, because this was just the foundation. This was just laying it down. All right. Well, I'm going to get off of here, and I'm going to see you guys next Tuesday. And I know you guys, let me say this. I know you guys are seeing more posts. We've hired a digital marketing people. And so we've hopefully crafted some conversations for you guys that you will like. Some of the posts, honestly, like them, share them, tell me what you think of them. You can inbox me what you think of them, and we can go from there. But we're just trying to be who we say we are. We don't want to get dragged into other conversations like some other stuff that we sometimes get dragged into. I don't want to do that. I want to be who I say I am as a Fatherless Generation Foundation. Joshua, I'll let this be my last comment. I thought it may have led to a male bashing session, but you clearly explained something in a different perspective than I've heard. Yay! I know some people didn't come because that's what they thought, Joshua. I don't bash men on here. Now, I may give y'all a little stern talk, but this is not about male bashing. This is about helping us. I'm always going to be here to help you connect the dots to your pain so you can get coaching, or you can take it to your therapist and get the tools you need, right? This is not, bashing men doesn't get us anywhere. It just doesn't. Because, yeah, we love men, right? And then we bash them and then they come back traumatized. No, it doesn't work that way. So I am glad that you did not feel like you were being bashed tonight. Thank you. I have achieved my goal. So I will talk to you guys next Tuesday. There will be some more videos finally coming forth on certain days. I've been working, y'all. I've been working behind the scenes. So I will talk to you guys later, and enjoy the rest of your week. I'm sorry, I'm looking at somebody's comment here on easier to tell them they are corrupt, but all hope is not lost. Women will fix you. No, that ain't what we're talking about, Paulie. That ain't the conversation. I'm sorry, I saw a post on Periscope. All right, good night, y'all.